Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Don Dagenais. I'm a member of the board of the Inspiration Point Fine Arts Colony, known as Opera in the Ozarks in Eureka Springs. And this is part of a series of interviews that we are conducting with prominent alums of Opera in the Ozarks. And we are deeply honored today to have Alexandra Lang as our guest, who has had a most interesting, multifaceted career since being at OIO. And we're going to find all about that in just a minute. But Alexandra, I just want to make sure that you understand that this is being recorded, that we're going to make this as part of our archives at the University of Arkansas. And we may possibly take snippets of it and use it in social media and stuff like that too, if that's okay with you. So,
great. Yeah.
Great. So thank you again for being with us. So, so if I can, let me take you back in time just a few years. So what was going on in your life, and when did you first hear about this odd little opera colony in the mountains of Arkansas?
I know. So I'm trying to remember exactly how I first heard about it, but I had been sort of in love with Manon since I heard an older girl sing it when I was in college at USC at the Thornton School of Music in Los Angeles. And so I think that I had worked on Adieu notre petite table, but nothing else from the role. And so I probably heard about it from a professor or, some on my aria class. Oh, they're doing Manon this summer, you should audition, right? And I think, we've done so much music. there's a lot of music in there, right? But I had done Je suis encore, which is the Act 1 aria, and the accompanying scene with Des Grieux at school in my scenes program. So that's why it was on my radar, because I had started to do that. And then I got an audition, and I think I actually auditioned for Roger Cantrell in New York City. And I was going to graduate school in Boston at the time at New England Conservatory. But I seem to remember it was in an apartment in New York City on the Upper West Side, I think. So I took Je suis encore. I think I might have taken Adieu, but I had never worked on the gavotte, but I knew it. And I'm a pianist, and I knew the notes and stuff. So Roger had me sight read the gavotte in my audition. And I went back to school, and my coaches said, well, I'm glad it went well, but never do that again. And I said, okay. But then I got it. So I thought, well.
So you were auditioning for that particular role, because some people I've heard say they just sort of did a general audition and didn't know when they went what role they were going to sing.
Right. No, I was definitely auditioning for that specific role. I have long been a very specific planner. So I was definitely auditioning for that. And it was a big deal for me, because that was my first big leading lady role. I had done Second Woman in Dido and Aeneas my senior year of college, and I had an aria, that was very exciting. And then in graduate school, knowing what I know now in terms of where my voice was going, it makes sense that I really wasn't doing a lot of full roles in graduate school, because I was sort of growing this bigger voice. But I got to do lots of great scenes programs and recitals, concerts, etc. But yeah, so it was a very big moment for me. It was a very big deal. I think I was the youngest of the Manons, because we had, I think we had 4 women total on the part, and I was the youngest and very green, but I learned a ton. There are some things that can't be replaced. You really can't replace something with experience, right? Sometimes you just have to do it to learn. So that summer was a big deal for me. It was a big step forward, kind of.
What year was that you were there?
I was there in 2009.
Okay.
Right after I finished my master's degree.
Great. So. And I forgot to mention at the top that today is March 4th of 2021. So we're talking like 13 years ago. Okay.
Right. No, and it was very, very exciting for me. And I was just lost my train of thought, but I'll think of it. This is my joke that I would tell people, especially right after. That was my first big role. Now, a lot of people call Manon the French Isolde, right? Because she's on stage so much. So my joke going forward from there was always, wait, I'm not on stage the entire time? What do you mean? because that was sort of what I compared each role to, right? So yeah, it's a big role. Yeah. But
Yeah, it really is. It really is. So
yeah.
you'd not done a full role before. So you had, in addition to all the music, I mean, you had to learn all the recitals and all that, but you also had to learn all the staging.
Yeah, and I come from an acting background. I mean, I've always loved to sing since I was an itty bitty girl, but I started going to acting conservatory on Saturdays, I think when I was 7, maybe. We have a wonderful, I'm originally from Atlanta, Georgia, and we have a wonderful community theater, Georgia Ensemble Theater, and they had a great conservatory on Saturdays. And that I learned a lot there. We did Shakespeare and musicals and improv and monologue work and animal work and movement work. I mean, all sorts of stuff. So that came very naturally to me. And I was doing at another playhouse in Atlanta, I was doing community musical theater by middle school. So I was quite busy performing, and I did band and choir and took piano lessons, and then I got to high school and was continuing with choir and musical theater. And then when I was a freshman in high school, a teacher heard me, a voice teacher was sitting in on the auditions with the theater director at Centennial High School in Roswell, Georgia. And she heard me sing and she thought I might have an operatic voice. And she was right. So we started studying, and I was still sort of switching between styles at the time. So I would sing one way in chorus. And then when I was a freshman, I did the Witch and Into the Woods, and I belted the whole thing. And my teacher said, okay, this is the last one. And then we were switching over, and I said, okay. Yeah, and then I just got the bug. Initially I thought at some point, oh, maybe I have to choose between theater and music, right? And then as I got to know opera, and my mom took me to hear Renee Fleming and learn the music and study with my teacher, Fran, then I realized, oh, I don't have to choose. This is theater and music and history and poetry and art and everything, all my favorite things all together. So that was sort of a nice discovery, because I thought I was making this big decision for a couple months there. But when I had all the information, I could make an informed decision. So
did you also participate in the other operas that summer at Opera in the Ozarks?
I'm trying to think. Yes, I was in the chorus of Pagliacci, which was so fun. I mean, I imagine from a mentor's perspective how fun it is to teach kids a great piece like that for the first time, because it makes it so new for them, right? I mean, I discovered that in my own teaching, because I teach privately, how wonderful it is to share this music with someone and teach it to them for the first time. It's very special. But yeah, so that's how I learned the show. And because of the way that show is designed, typically, I think in most productions, you're always on stage because you're the townspeople, right? So you're the townspeople coming in, and they're the traveling circus. So you sort of act almost as a Greek chorus of sorts to watch their show, right?
But the horror that unfolds.
Yeah. Yep. So that was a lot of fun. And maybe I was in something else. I'm trying to remember what else we had that summer. We had Pagliacci and Manon. Do you have a list of what was that summer?
Unfortunately, I haven't looked it up. But so I've heard it's kind of like an opera immersion program. You just you do everything, a little bit of everything there.
Yeah. No, it's great, and it's very. I think it's quite rare. I mean, I know that a lot of festivals have cropped up, but to go and have all of those young people doing it is a big deal, because a lot of places you go and you might get some great chorus experience, which is wonderful, but that's all you do, you never, and having the opportunity, a lot of the time, that's all you need. You just need a chance to try, just to go for it, right? And it's such a beautiful place, and it's such a safe place to do that. as a young singer, you know. So it was certainly very thrilling for me. It was yeah, I mean, it was my first big role, so it was very exciting, and my family came, and yeah, so.
Did you sense that there was like competition among the singers, or was it all sort of we're all in this together and we've got to make a success of it, or how? What sort of attitude did you?
Um, I think, I mean, sure, maybe a little bit, but I think for the most part, we were just having a total blast, you know? We're in this beautiful place. It's a bunch of young people. We knew how to have fun, you know, but we're just making music all the time. And when you're in a situation like that, it is a very intimate experience to be making art with someone else. So you get to know each other really quickly, and you're living together. So it's sort of like you're in college, you know, it's just this special, a summer music festival is its own special kind of spell, I guess. But I didn't feel like that strongly. No, I mean, I'm sure maybe people had some competitive feelings, but I don't really remember that. I was just trying to do my best, you know, and I do remember one very special colleague who I'm still in touch with, Annie Gill. She was one of the other Manons, and she was like my big sister in the cast, and very supportive and very helpful to me, and just gave me a lot of support. So I'm grateful for that, and you know, we see each other at auditions, especially in the before times. We used to see each other at auditions in New York, but we're still in touch, and she's a wonderful colleague. So
Yeah, that's
yeah.
great.
Yeah.
So let's talk about what happened after Opera in the Ozarks,
Okay.
because you've had a very interesting career. So you've
Thanks.
sung, first of all, just around the New York area, which is where you are, and elsewhere. You've
Mhm.
sung just all kinds of roles. I mean, I see Mozart, I see Bellini, I see Donizetti, I see
Uh-huh.
Rossini, I see Strauss, I see Wagner. I mean, you know, you've sort of done it all.
Yeah, sure. Well, as is the case for a lot of bigger voices, it's a long road. I mean, I remember going to an audition once, and I'm sure I had done Zerlina, you know, in a summer festival in Atlanta. I think the Harrower Opera Workshop at one point, and that was on my resume, you know. And then I took Marietta's Lied from Die Todesstadt, the Korngold, to an audition, and they just laughed. They said Zerlina, you know, but this is the sort of path of a bigger instrument that you kind of sing a lot of rep. My joke is that I always have a circle graph with mezzos, full lyric sopranos, dramatic coloraturas, spintos. But I think I'm probably, you know, a jugendliche dramatische Sopran. That's a young dramatic. So you can call it the ingenue of Wagner. I'll certainly sing some Verdi. But yeah, I've kind of experimented a little bit. I did Donna Anna and Don Giovanni one summer in concert. And I remember afterward, that was at Bruno Walter Auditorium with New York Opera Forum. And it's always a really wonderful, very educated audience. And it's a lot of fun. It's just a great hall. It's 250 seats, and it's sort of wide, so you can kind of see your whole audience, which is kind of fun, you know? And I remember someone saying, wow, a real Donizetti queen. And I thought, what? And the next year, Richard was doing Anna Bolena. So Richard Nachamkin from New York Opera Forum has been very supportive of me and given me a lot of opportunities to try things out. So I did Anna Bolena with him, and I did Maria Stuarda with him in concert, you know. So yes, I've done some Donizetti, and my first big role in New York, I mean, before I got here, I had done a couple gigs here, and that's where I met some of my New York contacts. I did Erste Dame in die Zauberflöte, and I did Mother in Hansel and Gretel. And so we did a stage performance of Hansel and Gretel, and then die Zauberflöte was in concert, and then they also took 3 of the Mozart production. They took 3 of the Mozart productions and then made a sort of highlights concert, and we did it at Weil Recital Hall at Carnegie Hall, and that was really fun. So I guess that was technically one of my first things in New York. But then after I got into the city, My first big thing in New York was Ariadne, in Ariadne of Naxos.
That's that's
Um,
that's a very, very tough role.
it's a tough role, and it was a great opportunity for me. Again, another opportunity to take a step forward. You know, you're critical to the success of that performance, so it really asks a lot of you. Um, which is great when you're ready, you know. I remember having that feeling when I did, I guess one of my other first more dramatic type roles was Lady Billows in Albert Herring. I did that at Napa Music Festival one summer. And I remember calling my mom and saying, I love that, like, they have to count on me, you know, like I just enjoy that feeling, right? It's like I'm relatively competitive, and I played a lot of sports growing up. I have two older brothers, and we all played a lot of sports. But so I like that of having to be one of the people they rely on, you know, which is probably a good thing because we have to do a lot of things at the same time. But yeah, Ariadne was a great experience. That was with Utopia Opera, which is a really creative, fun indie company here in the city. And they do a ton of rep, and they always do a quiz, and they have their audience vote on what they want to hear the following season, which
Oh,
is cool. Yeah, they're very tapped into their audience. But that was perfect because even though it's a big sing, that was in a 150 seat house. You know, it was in a little house. I didn't need to be screaming, you know, nothing like that. But it is funny because that's another role where you're on stage a lot. The final duet is like 20 minutes long. You know, you just sing at each other auf Deutsch, you know. But yeah, so that was great. And then I think I actually used to joke that that was my summer of Strauss, because this has continued to happen to me throughout my career, where I would not really be aware of a certain role or just that whole world. Because once you get into the bigger rep world, it's like a whole new world from what a lot of people are typically singing in undergrad and graduate school, right? So it's just a lot to learn, right? But that kept happening to me, where I would sort of become aware of something, and then 3 or 4 months later, I would have the chance to audition for it or something like that. So after Ariadne, I got to do Chrysothemis in Electra, in Strauss's Electra, with Richard Champion at New York Opera Forum. And that was a really great experience. Richard, I think they had lost their Chrysothemis and they were replacing someone, so I had to learn it quite quickly. And I don't know how well you know that score, but it's pretty hairy.
very tough. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It's pretty tough, and luckily I am a pianist. I studied privately for a long time, all the way up through high school, and that's been really helpful to me to learn roles and stuff on my own. But Richard taught me in that production how to sing with total vocal confidence, even if you weren't 100% positive about it, if you were just feeling a little shaky on your, you know, because of how hard that music was and just how quick the turnaround was, right? And that's a very good lesson, because it's easy to, if you're worrying about notes or rhythms, it's easy to come off your voice or undersing or oversing, or sometimes we even feel like, I'm actually experiencing this right now because I'm preparing a recital, which we can talk more about. But once you get comfortable with something, there seems to be so much more time to breathe and all of that. And you really don't have more time. It's just a lot of it is a mental thing, and getting to that place where you can keep a cool head, right? So it's just finding that within it. But yeah, so I got to do some cool Strauss, and I'm doing Chrysothemis again, which I think I can talk about this because it's March. But I'm doing, because it's a pandemic, I'll be part of a virtual offering from Dramatic Voices Berlin. These are with some colleagues who I actually attended a workshop with their other program, Opera Programs Berlin, with some agents, actually in Berlin a couple years ago. But they also run Dramatic Voices Berlin and will be working on Electra and then offering some excerpts in concert online. So I'm very excited to return to a role, because when you're younger, that's not something you always get to do. And as a lot of people who are flying around the world, singing in all the top opera houses have, between 4 to 8 signature roles, and those are the roles that they do most of the time, right? So that'll be a great experience as well. But
A couple things occur to me listening to you talk. One of them is that this idea of learning the entire role and singing it on stage so you get comfortable with it. I suppose harking back to Off in the Ozarks, your first really full role was Menol.
Yeah.
So this is kind of capitalizing on what you learned there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and the other thought that I had was there are all these different roles you're doing require a lot of different aspects of your experience. The staging, the singing, the organization, the memorization. Would you say that Up in the Ozarks is kind of where that all came together for the first time for you?
Maybe in really standing up and being an opera singer, in a big way, being a leading lady. I'd say that's where I got my first real crack at being a leading lady. I had certainly done memory work and tough musical work. In college, I was in a wonderful chamber choir at USC at the Thornton School. And we sang really difficult music, and there were only 24 singers in the choir. So you had to be real on top of your preparation, So I definitely sort of cut my teeth with that type of thing there. But certainly in terms of putting it all together, playing a character, all the multitasking that goes with being an opera singer, but certainly as a lead, there's so many things you have to do at the same time, right? And then ultimately you need to also rise above and communicate. That's the most important thing. But there's all sorts of things you're dealing with, moving in your costume and connecting with your colleagues and making sure you're hitting your mark and catching all your cues from the conductor. I mean, it's a coordination thing. And that's something I sort of say to my students. Because it's so easy to feel like, and I understand this because of many years of voice lessons, you might understand everything intellectually, but putting it all together in a seamless, coordinated way is really that sort of next level of performing, right? So yeah, I certainly, it was a big deal for me, huge deal for me to do that and step on that stage. And like I said, sometimes all people need is the chance. And that's what's so wonderful about Opera in the Ozarks, because they don't have, more seasoned singers coming in. They have these young singers, and if a role is bigger or the more challenging it is, they might be a little bit older, so it's appropriate vocally, certainly. But it's the young singer's shot to do their thing and try it out. And that's something that I think we could use a lot more of in the United States. It's just giving young singers the opportunity to fail. You know what I mean? I really, there's this article I read one time, this idea about failing up, and I just think we need that. We need to be able to do that without fear of, oh, is someone going to put it on YouTube, or it wasn't perfect. And a lot of times people just need to do it. You can't do it before you do it, right? So it's sort of a catch-22 for a little bit. But,
did you ever sing Menol again?
You know what? I've never done the full role again. I don't know that I would be cast to do it again, but the Act 3 duet at Saint-Sulpice is one of my favorites. I have visited Saint-Sulpice in Paris. It's one of the best duets in opera. I just don't know that I would,
You're probably beyond that in your career. Yeah.
I think that I am just vocally, but I did actually produce a community outreach concert in my neighborhood here in Queens, in Astoria, in September, I guess, because it was outdoors, so a socially distant concert. And I did actually sing the gavotte just because I wanted to, you know. So yeah, so I certainly still sing up and use my extension for things, but typically now it's more for the Donizetti Queens and Verdi and stuff like that.
Right,
But,
right.
yeah.
Let me talk a little bit about you. And so a different aspect of your career was that you were
Sure.
a founder of the New Camerata Opera. Is that right?
Yes. I was
So
one
tell
of
us
the.
about that.
Sure. So I was one of the original co-founders of New Camerata Opera, and I guess that officially started in the fall of 2016, but I guess we were, drumming up some fundraising stuff prior to that. But yes, I was a co-founder, and I was there for 2 years, and I got to do all sorts of things. Lots of singing, certainly. I learned how to produce. I produced 2 gala fundraisers, and I actually conceived and directed our first production, which was so there's this old Lehar operetta called Der Graf von Luxemburg, the Count of Luxembourg, and it's a really fun story. And it used to be like the hot ticket right after Merry Widow. They used to do it all the time,
right?
And it's beautiful music, and it's really fun. So we were trying to find a way to feature. There were 8 of us, and so we were trying to find a way to feature each singer a little bit in that first production. So what I did was we used that as sort of the bones of the show, because I named it The Count of Luxembourg and Other Tales. And then we opened cuts that didn't exist. So for the one young lover couple, we added a proposal scene so that he could sing Deines mein ganzes Herz. And, so we just did stuff like that so that everybody got, because some people already had their stuff baked into the Count of Luxembourg, but we just wanted to have a chance so everyone could have their moment to shine, So, so we did that, and we did lots of outreach concerts. We used to perform at this wonderful Italian restaurant, and we used to be there once a month, singing for people. It was really, it doesn't exist anymore, unfortunately, but it was a beautiful Renaissance decorated restaurant. So that was a lot of fun, and we did a lot of sort of private concertizing as well. But yeah, I got a ton of experience there. By the time I sort of updated my arts administration resume that I sort of just keep tabs on, I don't use it that much, but I looked at it to see what I had done. It's like, wow, we really got a lot done. And I sort of just reached a certain point where we were 2 years in, and I realized I needed to decide if that was going to be my focus, or if I was going to move on from it, just because it was getting pretty hard to sustain all of the singing work, all of the administrative and producing work, and all of my solo career stuff at the same time. So I felt like I needed to make a decision. And ultimately, I decided I didn't want to wake up 5 years down the road and think, oh man, there's so many things I didn't go for because right? So I just had to make that difficult decision. But I'm so glad for my time there. I had already had a decent amount of experience producing things because I produced a lot of concerts when I was in Boston during and after I got my master's degree at NEC. And I love producing. I love producing themed concerts and picking the repertoire and all of that. So I've done a bit of that, but now I have a decent amount of experience with it. And it does come in handy, because though I've moved on to focus on solo work, especially when the pandemic happened, I laughed and thought, well, I'm glad I'm good at producing, but I'm very grateful for the experience. So
what are your current projects then?
Sure. So I'm happy to share sort of how life has been during the pandemic and how that's transpired, I guess. But let's see. So I had been, just during the pandemic, that was actually one of the things that kept me sane, was my weekly voice lesson. So I had just been staying in shape vocally, and working on some things. And let's see, then so then I decided at a certain point when the numbers started getting better in New York, I thought, oh, okay, I'm going to produce something at my neighborhood coffee shop, because they had some lovely sidewalk space that faces a park in Astoria. And they started just having musicians come, and everyone would space out with their masks on, and the musicians would have a nice little radius around them. So I started talking with the gal who owns it, and she said, yeah, you've got to come. That would be great. So I, organized this concert with some opera, some musical theater, and a little bit of jazz actually too, which I've been singing in my kitchen while I'm cooking dinner for years, but had never done in public, and that was really fun because it's a passion of mine. And then because this is just how things work, 2 weeks before that concert was coming, I got a call from Promenade Opera Project because they needed a Leonora for their Fidelio. Now they were planning to do it live, and they then had to switch to virtual. And so they called me and said, would you be interested in doing this? I know Marcus Schenk because I covered Leonora 3 years prior in Boston at the North End Music and Performing Arts Center. So he knew that I knew it. So he called and said, hey, we'd love you to do this. Are you interested? You have, I think it was 2 to 3 weeks to get Leonora back on her feet. Just a light sing, right? But so I did, and we made Fidelio largely in my apartment. Actually, I got a little mic that comes with a stand that you can hook up to your phone. And we all did crazy, funny things in our apartments. I moved my bed around twice. And we played with lighting just to have different looks, and then we would use articles of clothing to help communicate, okay, now we're in the cave, now we're wherever we are, right? And then my man's costume for Fidelio was basically like a hat with all my hair in it and a sweatshirt and jeans. But so I think I guess I recorded my aria in a studio in the city, a rehearsal studio, but everything else I did here. And it was such a fun experience. It was definitely difficult. One of the biggest things that's been hard about the pandemic, and I know some people like this and some people don't, but for a long time before we could get together with people, pianists were making tracks for people for virtual auditions or whatever they needed, right? So you'll have these in your ear, and then or I also had tracks that I could pair with my speaker in my room, which is just, I have a story that I can share, but it's difficult because it sort of changes how you feel your resonance, because all those through your ear chamber and everything, that's like a real part of how you feel your resonance when you're singing. So that's been a learning curve, to be sure. But I was working on Sempre Libera earlier in the pandemic, and I'm sure you know the aria well, but there are multiple times when the orchestra just drops out and you have a cadenza by yourself. And the first time I had to sing with the track, it was very frustrating. And I just thought, how am I supposed to sing a cadenza if I don't know when to start? Because it's just audio, But some of those experiences led to me being aware of the things I needed to ask for when we did Fidelio. So especially when I'm singing music like that, a lot of times, especially if I'm in my upper register, I can't hear anything, and I'm not going to be able, even with this, right? So I asked us if we could get a visual from our wonderful conductor, Ismael Sandoval, and they said yes. So they sort of did it backwards. Like he gave notes and tempi to the pianist, and they recorded it, and then he went back in and recorded conducting so that we could have that visual cue, because otherwise, I don't know. I'm glad that I was seasoned enough to ask for what I need, because I don't know how I would have gotten through that entire opera filming in my bedroom, basically, without those cues from him, So but we did that, and it was great. They released it in 3 parts, like a television show, and all my friends and family around the country watched it, and it was really fun. And then I guess that just sort of led to a few more things. So I met Fran Rogers, who's one of the founders of Sparrow Live, which is a new classical streaming platform. And it's fun for them because they were already planning to launch, but then it kind of coincided with the pandemic starting. And it ended up being perfect timing for them to have a virtual streaming service. But I met Fran through Fidelio, and he invited me to give a recital on Sparrow Live. So I'll be doing that in just a couple weeks here. And I'm happy to share, I have my little, some more info about that, but I can share a couple other things I've done since then. With some of my colleagues from Promenade Opera Project, which is who I did Fidelio with, we did a Christmas concert. There's a series at Cambridge Public Library, and we were invited to do that. So we did, some classic holiday tale songs, and then also a couple arias as well. I did Io son l'umile ancella for the first time, and that was really fun. And everyone decorated their house, with Christmas stuff. And then I also did an art song project with Chrisman Opera Studio, which is here in the city. They developed a project to lift up artist voices of women and people of color and the LGBTQ plus community. So I got to do a great, really funny song by Maria Thompson Corley. And we had a fun time working on that, and we're planning to collaborate together in the future. But yeah, so everything sort of led to itself, I guess. But I'm happy to share just to give people an idea of what the recital is about. Let's see. Oh, and I have my phone on airplane mode because I didn't want anything to ring, but let's see. So I'll be performing with Eric Sedgwick, who is a wonderful collaborative pianist, and we've done a lot of stuff together. Let's see here. So my recital is called The Journey Work of the Stars, and I'll read you the blurb so you can get an idea. As the northern hemisphere tilts toward the sun and the days grow longer, it awakens from its slumber. Snow thaws, buds appear, and we experience the true beauty and spirituality of the natural world. Falling on the vernal equinox, The Journey Work of the Stars explores the mystery and magic of this change in season when the sun's pathway crosses the celestial equator. Through the works of Respighi, Strauss, Barber, and Rachmaninoff, we celebrate the rich treasures that surround us, if only we take the time to stop and look. So that just gives you a little idea of what that's about. And it will be on March 20th, which is the vernal equinox. So like I said, I like to produce things and plan themed things. So yeah.
That sounds like a lot of fun.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I really am.
Well, I've taken a lot of your time, and it's been so much fun listening to all these interesting things you're doing and have done.
Oh, thank you.
Probably talk the rest of the day. Before we wrap it up, let me just suppose that you were sitting around in a room with other people who were alums of Opera in the Ozarks, reflecting upon your careers and kind of what that meant back at the beginning. And what message would you have, or what comment would you have for them if you were talking to them about?
Well, we would certainly need to say scrape your plate because that's and don't tell anyone, but I did steal my red cup from the cafeteria. I still use it all the time. Yeah, I mean, I just think we had a blast, I mean, and it was such a beautiful place to be too. I'm forgetting, is it the White River? What's that off that little lookout?
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, it was just a really special time, it's just all these kids taking risks with all this amazing music, and I think we got to do some concertizing as well in the town and stuff. And Eureka Springs is just such a neat place. I actually have, you know what I have? I have a print from my summer. I was there. Do you want to see?
Oh, I'd love to see it.
Yeah, it's gorgeous. I think you can still hear me. Let's see here. So this is the print I got from
Oh, how
Eureka
wonderful.
Springs when I was there, just from the main drag there. But
Yeah, right.
yeah, so that was especially nice since it was my first big thing. But I always like to take artwork from where I performed if I can, just as a memory, you know. But yeah, so it has a very special place in my heart, and would love to have the chance to go back someday. And um, but yeah, I mean, I still keep in touch with a lot of people who've been there, and luckily social media enables us to do that more easily than in the past. So you can see what people are up to and what they're doing.
Yeah,
So
great,
yeah,
wonderful. Well, is there anything that we forgot in the cover that we should have talked about before we wrap it up?
gosh, I'm not sure. I'm trying to think if, I mean, I sort of shared what I'm,
Yeah, yeah. I think you've
what
done a
I'm
great
doing
job. I
this
just didn't want
year.
to. I didn't want to end the conversation and have you think, oh, I should
Yeah,
have
no
stuck.
problem, no
Well, thank you so
problem.
much for taking so much of your time. This has been so much
Oh,
fun, and
sure.
you've had a
Yeah, happy
really
to.
interesting career, and it's continuing to go, and it'll go on, I'm sure, for some time. So, congratulations upon all your success, and best wishes.
Oh, thank you so much. Yeah, well, take care and stay well. And I look forward to hearing when OIO can open up again. And we just all got to keep the faith, wash our hands, stay well, you know.
Right, right. Well,
So
we have plans. We hope to be back this summer. So,
I'm so glad. I'm so glad. Well, it was so lovely to talk with you. And thanks for reaching out. And go OIO. I think I still have my t shirt somewhere. So
thank you so much. Have a great day.
thank you. Have a great day.